Hello, welcome to dotWAVE. I'm your host, Josh, aka Souma. This is a space dedicated to the deeper frequencies of progressive and melodic house and the minds that create them. Music is how we process the world, and on this show, we don't just break down the production, we look at the reality of being an artist. We're talking about the highs of creative breakthrough, the self-doubt, and how mental health shapes the art that we put out into the world. Join me in talking to your favorite artists about music, life, and everything in between. In this episode, I spoke with Lauren Schrader. She's a talented artist and producer who is part of what makes melodic progressive house what it is today. Hi, thank you for joining me.
Hey, how's it going?
It's good. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good.
That's good. So to start, I want to ask you, do you have a specific time in your life, or even like potentially a specific song that you remember as like the start of your love for melodic progressive house?
Yeah, Summer Walk by North Sunset. I heard that in the Monster Cat Plug.dj room. Shoutouts to anyone who remembers what Plug.dj is. This has been so long ago. But I heard North Sunset. And it's not that I wasn't already listening to Dead Mouse and stuff.
Right.
But like the specific, like North Sunset was the first like artist that I heard that was specific to, you know, our style, I guess.
Yeah, like the kind of little subgenre of progressive house
that we've carved out over the past decade or so. Yeah. Decade and a half.
Partially thanks to you. So, yeah, I mean, melodic progressive, I think, has such a specific vibe to it. When you sit down to make a song, do you have, like, is there a certain emotion or, like, a certain vibe? Is there, like, a mental visual that you have of, like, a beach or, like, a sunset that you're, like, this is what I'm trying to paint with music?
So, I would... My music is definitely heavily based off of how I'm feeling at the time. Mm-hmm. It's why so much of it is so kind of laid back or even melancholic at times. A lot of people won't even realize that a lot of my music has a melancholic tone because I am sitting there like telling myself to be optimistic through my own music, right? Yeah. Telling myself, hey, you got to keep looking forward, keep your head up. So, you know, I will make happy music sometimes. Those are rare circumstances because I don't necessarily write for the club as much as I do just for someone that might just be hanging out at home listening to music, right?
Right.
But like my music's kind of about going on a journey, right? You know, there's definitely thought put into like, okay, well, this is sort of the emotion that I'm feeling right now. And it's not like going to be something simple, such as I'm feeling sad. You know, right. Emotions are so complex, right? But, you know, I have a song sitting finished on the hard drive right now. It's called Happy to Be Here. And I wrote it after moving in to my current living situation, which is significantly better than my last one.
Yeah.
I'm literally happy to be here. All right. It's still a decently laid back track, but it's got some hopeful vibes and good energy and stuff to it. Right.
Yeah.
Like I know that people are going to love that one. It's still not a happy track despite the good emotions, but, you know, I do struggle with depression and anxiety and stress and PTSD. Mm-hmm. So much of my music is about, you know, taking something that like very negative that I'm feeling and channeling it into something objectively positive, which is my music.
Right. That's something I've noticed with myself and with everyone that I've talked to is, you know, we're all kind of fucked up.
We all got something going on.
Yeah. And the music is a release, you know, it's a way to kind of take, whatever you're dealing with mentally, you kind of just put it into the music. And honestly, even like for me, even if I'm not feeling happy and I start making a song that has really happy vibes, like that brings up my mood.
See, I'm more likely to make something that's going to relax me than I am to make something that is going to make me directly happy.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's the thing that I love so much about like mellow prog is it never feels like just one simple like here's a happy song with a super fast beat and major chords. Like
there's plenty of melodic prog that is like that.
For sure. Yeah.
I really through my YouTube channel I try to influence people to make more thoughtful stuff. Mm-hmm. But like making chords is also extremely difficult, and a lot of us fall out of touch with the fact that is a fact.
Oh yeah.
Because like I've been around for however long I've been around, like 12 years, and I thought making chords was extremely difficult at first, and I went through a period where everything was just major chords and whatever, or like everything was written in a major scale and was coming out cheesy sounding and whatever, and some people like that, There's nothing wrong with cheese. I order extra of it on my pizza all the time, right?
Same.
Exactly. So, there's something for everyone, but I personally like more, minor sounding chords. I think they tend to be more emotional once you master them.
Yeah. I think especially with, like the very classic sound of mellow prog, the very kind of pluck-based songs where, the chord progression kind of is the driving force. It's not something additive to a melody. Like, that kind of is your melody, and then everything else is accenting it.
Yeah, and one of my thoughts is that, like with my music, I'm very keenly aware that the chord progression kind of carries the story a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. I like to make chord progressions that are not overly complex, and instead I like repetition and putting the complexity in the melodies.
Yeah. So that ties in with my second question. Melodic progressive, any progressive song is going to be longer in length. How do you balance, with that length, how do you balance, repetition with, maybe going a little bit too crazy? What is like the right amount of repetition? How do you keep things fresh?
Some people seem to have like a number in their mind on what's repetitive and what's a perfect balance on track length and whatever. I'm more worried about, okay, so here's this extended mix. Because I make my extended mixes first, which is not as common these days.
Right.
I know plenty of people still make extended mixes first, and then they, send it to the butcher for the radio mix. Try to keep the radio mix in mind while working on the extended mix, which obviously we just called the radio mixes original mixes these days, but they're radio mixes, let's be real. So
extended was the original, and then you would have the radio.
Yeah. So I keep the whole vibe of the track in mind, with the fact that like it has to be cut down.
Right. Yeah. So like you keep that in mind with the arrangement.
Yeah, I'm keeping it in mind the entire time. And my latest track, Divinity, I think I did a good job on the radio mix, or the original mix, if you will.
Right. Yeah.
But like that took looking at like synthwave, that genre, for some inspiration.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for the arrangement on Divinity, I had been listening to a lot of synthwave.
Okay, I get that.
Because it's not as reflective in the intro or at the beginning of the radio mix, but it is there.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
The sound design and the writing are not inspired by synthwave at all. Only the arrangement. But yeah.
Going through it in my head, I can see how that is there, how that inspiration kind of...
Yeah, it's kind of... I'm kind of... Like, synthwave has a lot of similarities to our own genre, right? Like, there's lots of repetition. There's cool chord progressions that, you will really latch you on in most of the tracks.
Yeah, very vibe heavy.
They're heavy on vibes. You know, there's lots of mirrors there. They're like perfect mirror imaging. So yeah, I definitely, there'll be huge chunks of the year, sometimes even more of the year, where I'm listening to more synthwave and drum and bass than I am prog house. I mean, though, to be fair, most of what I listen to is not prog house. So
yeah, I'm the same way. I listen to a whole range of things, and I think that's honestly important because, you know, you could find some little hook in a rap song and be like, hold on, that would actually sound really cool
as like a melody or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, for me, when I started listening to bossa nova, it completely changed my music because I was like being exposed to all of these like unique grooves and rhythms and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I took a look at my music and I was like, I can do way cooler than this. So that's like the really short and repetitive chord progs, or even long but simple chord progs, started with me when I started really getting into bossa nova, which is about 2020.
Yeah, I mean, bossa nova is a great inspiration, and like especially for, you know, percussion and like the syncopation.
Bossa nova and samba, yeah, they're amazing. You know, I know a lot of people in our genre take a lot of inspiration from like Spanish music.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't. It's not that I don't like it. It's just that I never got into it as much as I got into bossa nova.
Right.
And the rhythms and the grooves in bossa nova. And the harmonies, too. I'm very inspired by the harmonies in that stuff.
That's bossa nova has a lot of overlap with, you know, very, very soulful
with like
jazz,
contemporary jazz and whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So that's, and
there's definitely way different. There's overlap, but there is different history, and a lot of it sounds like, if you look at it from like, if you know anything about biology, it looks like convergent evolution almost.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So, you know, two related genres, they are related, but you know, a lot of their similarities are also coincidental.
Yeah, they very much kind of branched into their own path.
So, and then there's many that are not coincidental, right? Like, you know, there's obviously the African slave trade's influence on music in the Americas, but I'm not going to get into that now.
Chicago house, and what is, if you have one, what is one VST or effect that you have started using a lot recently and has like become your go-to?
Oh man, you're gonna make me look like an idiot on your first episode. So I made a little bit of a return to producing on FL Studio.
Ooh, okay.
About a year and a half ago. I started working on music with It's Playa.
Yeah.
We started working on a bunch of music together, and I came to learn that the dude uses mostly stock plugins. I was like, okay, I use mostly stock plugins, so I've heard the line before.
Right.
But he's got me beat on like with FL Studio. With FL, I think I was simply bad at using the stock tools. So when I went back to using FL, even, you know, temporarily,
right,
or for the short term, I was like, I want to learn how to use FL's stock plugins. And so to name a few that I use a lot whenever I use FL Studio, I know the question wasn't FL centric, but the toolkit has remained fairly similar on Logic, is what I'm saying.
Right.
But when I am making music on FL, like, I use Fruity Compressor a lot these days. I didn't touch that with like a 10-foot pole until It's Playa was like, I use that Fruity Compressor.
It works. It's good.
And I was like, okay, well, if that's how he's getting, you know, some of this stuff to sound so snappy and whatever, then clearly it works.
Yeah.
So the past couple of tracks that I've done on FL Studio have been with a stock compression, and then FL's delay is decent. I've been using FL keys for the pianos. You know, I've come to find out that I've come to realize that, you know, you can really make anything sound good if you mix it well.
Oh yeah. Right.
The right reverb, the right delay, you know. In terms of like, if the most recent third-party software that I bought, I do actually use a little bit of it, quite a lot. And I got the Chord Collection 5.
Chord Collection, yeah.
That has like all of that has whatever chord collection you buy. So I think they're on like 6 or 7 right now. Whatever you buy always contains everything that they have, ported to PC up to that very moment, right?
Right.
So I ended up getting access to the Chord Triton in that, and I was originally mainly interested in that suite of plugins for my drum and bass stuff that most people don't even know exists. But I started using it in that stuff, and I was like, dang, well, this would actually work really good in my house music.
Right, yeah.
So I guess, unexpectedly or unintentionally split it up into 2 categories. First party, it is Fruity Compressor.
Fruity Compressor, yeah.
As
It's
the
good.
newest thing that is in everything for me.
Yeah.
And Triton just across the board, because I am doing most of my work in Logic Pro still. I definitely prefer Logic Pro.
Right.
But every now and then an idea pops up while I'm messing around on FL, and it develops on FL, and it's like, okay, well, at this point I'm too lazy to remake it on Logic.
Yeah, well, that's the nice thing about knowing multiple DAWs and being able to use them is that, even for collabs, but also just if you start something.
Yeah, and I think
kind of just go through with it.
I think that FL is really good for like beginners.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
It's good for pros. I mean, I think it does its job perfectly fine. But I think it's a good middle ground software for people that don't want to use Ableton or Logic for like specifically for collabs as well. Like, no one wants to collab with me on Logic. Boo-hoo. It's okay. I know how to use FL Studio, right?
Right, yeah.
And then beyond that, I also know how to use WAV file collabs. It's nice knowing FL, for many reasons, but the collabs are definitely one of them.
Yeah, and FL gives you a lot of freedom. Whether that be good or bad could be discussed, but
yeah,
I think, especially as you're starting to learn, having that freedom can, it's a great way to kind of force yourself to figure everything out.
I used it for, I think I used it for like 6 or 7 years. I think it was 7 years.
Wow, yeah.
And then in 2019, the computer that I had up until that time broke. The motherboard went bad on it. And I was faced with the decision to get another gaming computer or to give a MacBook a go to see if it would make my music sound better. And it absolutely did. Because it's not... So the dotWAVE switch forced me to learn so many new, both plugins and like the layout of a new program that I think didn't you just switch over to Ableton?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, so you'll know that even if you know what you're doing, you switch to a new genre or you switch to a new dotWAVE. It's like you're wandering around like you're drunk or something.
Yeah, it's
like you do know exactly what you want. Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say. You know what the goal is, right?
Yeah, yep.
But getting there, your legs are way wobbly, right?
Yeah,
super wobbly, and you don't have any depth perception, right?
Yep.
And, then you wake up the next day and you're still forced to deal with the consequences of your actions. The consequences of your actions being, oh no, I switched to a new DAW and I have to learn what I'm doing.
Yeah, yep. And you have to sit there and be patient with, like, I know exactly what I want.
Like, you have to
just do it, but you have to learn how to do it.
Yeah, you have to contend with the fact that there are things that you have to learn that you definitely would not have to learn if you were still using your last DAW.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
But like my mixing got like markedly better when I moved to Logic. I don't think it's because Logic is just inherently better than FL. It's just because I had to learn everything basically all over again.
Right, and that time when you're learning it, you have a stronger foundation. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think you do know exactly what you want. And you don't have any depth perception.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Yeah, and it was really interesting too because I can go take what I've learned from Logic and I can go back to FL these days, and my mixing on FL is just as good as my mixing on Logic these days.
Right.
I don't like my sound design as much because I don't have access to ES2.
That's fair. ES2, I wish I could play with.
Yeah, ES2 is pretty amazing. I'm not gonna lie, it's absolutely incredible, and especially once you figure out like if Christian Hertz's music is like a big inspiration to you, ES2 really is as much fun as his music makes it sound like it is.
Yeah, that's a good.
It's got a distinctive sound too, so like
it really does. Yeah.
When you know what ES2 sounds like, you can point it out in like everything.
Yeah.
That it exists in, right? Because it's got this warm sound to it.
Yeah, that's kind of like Diva. You can tell.
Exactly. Like, it feels like a better version of Diva.
Right. And that's saying something, because Diva is...
Yeah, Diva's pretty
fantastic.
Amazing, right? Like, though these days, if I were to tell anyone, like, hey, if you want an ES2 type sound, I would not tell them to use Diva. I would tell them to use Serum 2 because the filtering capabilities are...
Right.
You can on Serum 2, you can manually program in all of the stuff, or almost all of the stuff that ES2 just does.
Right. Yeah. So you can replicate that sound decently.
Serum 2 is the closest you can get to, like, specifically with like the ES2 bells and chord plucks and whatever.
Right.
Yes, Serum 2 is the closest that I have gotten. It's worth saying, though, I got so close that it passes.
Oh, wow.
Like, it doesn't pass, like, it passes in the sense that, like, they're really nice and warm and stabby chords that almost sound like where they were made in ES2.
You achieve, like, the vibe and the sound you're looking for.
Yeah, I got the vibe, right? So it's kind of like, it's literally like one brand of vanilla ice cream versus the other brand of vanilla ice cream.
Right, yeah.
A little bit of a difference, but not much of a difference. Still vanilla ice cream at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, I get that. Do you like to have a lot of, like, VST and sample options, or do you tend to restrict what you use? Like, what is more creatively effective for you?
I don't restrict what I'm using unless I'm working. Like, I think the only case where I would restrict what I'm working on is if the context kind of demanded it, right? Like,
right.
You wouldn't go into making, like, some, like, I don't know, early 2000s atmospheric D&B with, like, a lot of, like, modern sounding synths. You would want to get something like, you would want to stay as faithful to that stuff as possible, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, like, with my melodic prog, I almost never limit myself. So, like, in the past, when I limited myself over, like, on what I was using, it was based off of CPU limitations.
Right, yeah.
So it was like, okay, well, I can only use Diva or Spire or Omnisphere for these one or two things, right?
Right.
The Apple Silicon Macs, they will literally allow you to throw a brick at them and they'll process the brick, in a few seconds, right? So, they will literally run anything.
Yeah, that's, I know some people will, when they're feeling creatively challenged, they'll intentionally restrict, or do the opposite. They'll intentionally, like, go buy a new sample pack just because that's what they need to, like, push them somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it can be fun to set, like, certain goals, like, okay, so I want to use the piano in this track, but I'm only going to use the FL stock piano, FL keys, or like, I'm going to try to make this sound, but only with this synth, or maybe only with this effect am I going to try to achieve this type of reverb, right?
Right.
Like, I've manually programmed shimmer reverb before with, just some clever sound design and the right, like, just the right EQing and sound design and right settings on Fruity Reverb. You can get a pretty good shimmer reverb going.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
right.
I think that
and that's Fruity Reverb 1.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah. There's little challenges that I'll give myself, but like none that would like greatly change, the potential outcome of the track.
Right. And they're not necessarily like things that you need in order to drive that creativity.
Yeah, I would say the only thing that I ever challenged myself on, because I basically learned how to make this stuff from Talamanca, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's one thing that he has always been like objectively like way better than me at. Like always, as in like he continues to be way better than me at this. And like while my ambitions have never been to be the next Talamanca, I do you do look at people that you look up to and wonder how do they do this?
Right. Like how did they get that? How did they do this? And how can I do
Yeah,
that?
yeah. So he's really good, and anyone that has been listening to his music for longer than a few weeks will know he's really good at using samples and like
yeah.
really creatively arranging samples together.
Yeah. His percussion is always just next level.
See, the percussion I'm fine on. I think I do percussion fine, but it's like when he takes like sampled guitars and stuff.
Oh yeah.
That's a fun challenge because like, you can claim that samples are lazy, but go like take a splice sample of a guitar and, just try to throw it into your track and make it work. It's not always going to work.
Right. And to repurpose it or like cut it.
And then sometimes he's often chopping these things up and repurposing them and all sorts of things, so, that's like, that's usually a fun challenge for me is like, hey, let's see what kind of cool stuff I can sample that is just not going to be possible for me to make without a synth. So like, I released a track last year called The Rest of the Story. And there's this like there's just a bunch of sampling in that track, and then like I use the chord Triton for the Japanese koto that plays in that track.
Yeah.
Because I wanted it to sound sampled.
Cool.
Yeah, and what better to use for something that you want to sound sampled than a Rompler from the 90s?
Yeah. Oh,
right?
That's awesome.
It's funny because when you learn that technique or you start learning like what he's doing, like I'm still coming up with stuff that sounds like it was made by me. And that's kind of the intention. That's totally the intention, because if I wanted, like, honestly, if my favorite artists were enough, I wouldn't be making my own music. All right.
Right, yeah.
It's not that their music isn't good enough. It's just that I need the emotional outlet of like actually having hands-on with the music.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of us make our music for us first and foremost. Like, I make it because I like it,
Exactly, yeah, and there's artists that are always waiting for me to make the next like Wonderful People or Pushing On or whatever, because those are like very upbeat tracks or whatever, but like very happy and whatever. And to me, like those kind of feel cheesy,
right?
But they're like that's my opinion. Other people have reached out about those tracks saying like, oh, well, it doesn't feel cheesy to me at all. It feels hopeful.
Right.
You know?
It's all about the
perspective. So they're it's all perspective, right? So but I am making music for myself first and always. So
I think that's kind of the way to do it, and particularly, not being in a genre like pop where your goal isn't, how can I get 10 million streams on this? Well, that would be nice. Like, the goal is to just make something and to be artistic and to have that outlet.
Well, pop is like, I feel like it can be such a cool genre.
It's so fun.
But, and there's not really, but there's not like a total but to it, because I still love listening to Sabrina Carpenter. Do not get me wrong.
Right.
It's overcapitalized. Right, there's too much capitalism in the art of pop music,
right?
And because of that, like,
the goal is to make a product as opposed to
and so like pop music is like in some respects it's like the original slop, right?
Right.
Because you had these big record labels just looking constantly for the next big thing, the next big product, and that's not the kind of producer I am. I'm not really looking to follow market trends.
Right.
or even demand, really. I really make this stuff for myself.
Yeah. I think that's the most authentic way to be,
And
honestly.
like most of my true discography is not released. So, part of that's on purpose and part of that is due to health issues, both mental and physical. Mostly mental, honestly, causing me to just give up on certain tracks or, straight up be like, okay, well, I've fallen out of love with this track.
Right. I mean, I
And I
don't know.
cannot be bothered to finish the final 5 to 10%.
Literally that. Yeah. I don't know anyone who makes music who doesn't have a whole list of songs that are 90% done, and it's just like I just
Yeah.
need to add like transition effects on some songs.
Oh God, I listened
that's
to a project earlier that literally just needs transitional effects.
Yeah,
And maybe a
like you
little
think,
tiny
oh, I
bit of
could just add those
automation.
in, and like
Yeah,
a little bit of
like
automation, and it would be done. But you just don't. You can't get yourself to do it.
yeah, and it's kind of funny though, but that's kind of how like albums and EPs happen, right?
Yeah,
For some
yeah,
people, I have an album laid out right now that it's a lot of unfinished projects, it's a lot of new projects, but it's also a lot of unfinished projects that
right.
were good ideas from long ago that just didn't get finished for whatever reason. So it's 10 tracks, and I'd say half of them are new and half of them are from like 2023, 2024.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah, but that's the nice thing is to have that backlog, and then sometimes if you're like I feel like I should make something, but I'm not necessarily feeling inspired, you can go back to it and you discover something and you go, hold on, this is actually like this is good. This
Well,
was a good idea.
to add on to that, like sometimes you leave projects behind, and the self improvement that you go through while it's sitting on the back burner,
Right. Yeah.
or even maybe lost in purgatory for a while, sometimes the self improvement does make that stuff worth it, like the wait.
Oh yeah.
So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
like there are tracks that have sat around doing nothing for years. Like, again, the rest of the story, that one was started in 2020, early 2024, maybe late 2023.
Wow.
And it released like last summer.
Right.
I went through, various changes to my mixing process, my sound design process in that time period because, I went through a hiatus in that time period.
Right. Yeah.
And then when I came back from the hiatus, and it was not a voluntary hiatus, but when I came back, my music got a lot better, and every project that I have found in the hard drive since then that was at like 90 or 95% at the time, fell behind my current standards, right?
Yeah.
And I was able to, I'm able to often make them way better than, what they could have been. And part of that's, with part of that comes like the intuition of like, okay, sometimes I will make, for me at least, I will sometimes make a track that everyone that hears the track or the project thinks it sounds great. And I will sit on it and mull over it and be unhappy with it for whatever fucking reason.
Right.
For the longest time. And, my intuition is often correct on like, maybe I need to give this like a month or two to sit around.
Yeah, give it some time, let it breathe.
Yeah, like the tracks that throw themselves together within like, a few days are usually like your objectively good ideas that you get right the first time and you don't need to do much else. But especially the projects that like you are making that kind of progress on and then you stall out at like, your 80 to 90%. Sometimes, taking time to, ask yourself and maybe ask other people, hey, I think this or something else might be missing from this track and I'm having trouble. This is where like having peers and knowing your peers and whatever can be really nice because, you can get feedback and, maybe a month or two later after you've been improving on certain, skills or concepts or whatever, maybe then your track will be ready to finish and, get the finishing touches put on it.
Right. Yeah. it's being able to step away and come back is really important. And
being able to step away is very easy, from a
back is the hard
project,
part.
and going on to the next new project. It's extremely easy. Coming back and taking care of what you started is the hard part.
Yeah.
There's a lot of very objectively good artists in our genre and in other genres too, but like in our genre there's plenty of people I know of that are like insanely good artists, and their shortcoming is their inability to commit.
Right. Yeah. That inability to take
You
an
gotta
idea that
you
is
gotta
so good and
you gotta commit to your idea, but you also have to commit to your project and what you've made, and you have to release stuff.
yeah. That
Because
needing
people
to be
get hung
perfect
up
and
on
needing
like,
everything to be perfect in the mix, and it's so difficult to release
if you
something
get
and
too
just
hung up
say-
on that stuff, most of your tracks will go unreleased and you'll never be happy.
And if you keep tweaking and tweaking and tweaking, it's going to get worse.
Well,
You
that's
can only
not
get
always
so
the
perfect,
that's not
you know.
always the truth.
That is true, yeah.
So from what I've noticed as A&R is that your version of perfect is obvious, or is usually going to be completely unrealistic for
Oh, yeah,
whatever
yeah.
reason exists inside your head. It's probably unrealistic.
Right.
And then like a lot of artists fail to give like things the listeners consideration.
Right.
Like a lot of artists suck at like listening to music.
Yeah. And I think
So
listening to a song that you've heard 100+ times and being able to hear it with ears that are hearing it for the first time, where you think, oh, this build up and this release into a chorus or something, you listen to it so many times and it doesn't feel like it has the energy. But if you're listening for the first time, you're not expecting that build up and that release, or it's the first time you're hearing it, so it's so much more satisfying, and it does give you that feeling that you're searching for.
Yep.
But you're just you've gone over it 200 times, and so you try to perfect it more and more, and whatever you have in your head is it's impossible to achieve.
yeah, I would honestly say that if you lack the ability to listen to music without like, especially your own, if you lack the ability to listen to music without critiquing it or saying like, oh, well, this part of the mix is wrong,
Right.
but like, especially your own music, or specifically your own music, then you need to take time off of listening to your own music, or the specific song that you're listening to, because by the time you're unable to listen to it like it's the first time, you need to really take a break from it.
Yeah, that's the reason that you'll be on a project for so long, and you'll step
that's
away
why
from
I
it,
recommend,
and you'll come back, and all of a sudden it sounds good.
It's why I think it's best practice to have a ton of projects laying around. Like, you need to have commitment not issues. Sorry.
You need to have commitment issues.
My mouth is getting ahead of my brain. You need to not have commitment issues with your projects, but like it's not like, it's not like you're not allowed to have multiple projects, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. I'm very polyamorous with my project. All right, we're gonna start wrapping things up. We're gonna go into a little quickfire. Headphones or studio monitors? You can only use one.
That's not a quick fire, because I've never used studio monitors because I can't afford them. So headphones it is.
All right. Well, that was quick. That's a quick fire.
Cannot afford studio monitors. Don't know if I like them. Can't miss what I've never had.
You know what? That is fair. Daytime studio or nighttime studio work?
Usually nighttime, or at the very least in complete darkness.
Okay.
With blackout curtains and whatever, right?
Right. Got to get the vibe, get the atmosphere right. Okay, I respect it. If you had to choose one for a project and you couldn't use the other, would you choose reverb or delay?
Reverb. I think delay repeats your original sound too much, too perfectly, to an extent that it would potentially muddy the mix too much.
Yeah, I agree. I think that delay can have a lot of really fun effects, but
delay's incredible. It is not an instrument.
It's, especially for this genre and the atmosphere that we try to create, getting those kind of sustained tails that reverb provides
Yeah.
Even with like a lot of blur on a delay, that would be really difficult to do. What is one piece of advice that you give to a producer who's just starting in melodic progressive?
Gosh,
That's a hard one.
there's a bunch. Learn chords. Learn
Learn
how to
music
write
theory.
chords. Learn. Well, no, I don't know any music theory.
Same, honestly.
Like genuinely, I am self like taught in every sense of the word. I
Right there
don't
with you.
think that I don't think that any music theory beyond what is necessary for the layman is necessary to make good chords, because
Oh yeah, yeah,
a lot of people have the ear for it, but it's also easy to learn the ear for it too. So
yeah. Learn to be able to make chords that enable you to achieve the emotion that you're looking for.
if you, yeah, and as an aside, don't don't crutch on your chords to carry your track, because
True.
this specific subgenre is a little over 15 years old, and some might even say that it's about 20 years old.
Mm-hmm.
It's in that ballpark, 15 to 20. You cannot really hinge on chords or chord plucks alone to carry a track in 2026. You know, it's
Right.
not that it's not possible, it's just that it's very difficult.
Yeah, you really have to nail down the vibe and
Like
the atmosphere
I
to
think,
do that.
you know, someone that is great, like you have your normal examples of people that make good chords, such as like Roald Velden and Talamanca, and you know, obviously the guy that got things started, basically Christian Hurt.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but like, you know, those are classic examples at that point, or
Right.
at this point. One of the newer artists, or he's not really new at this point in time, but you know, to me, he's still new because, well, I remember when you know, I just remember when he showed up.
Right. Yeah.
It's Playa. That dude is really good at taking chords and telling stories with them.
Mm-hmm.
But even him, he's not. The chords aren't his only story that he's. You know, they're not the only, you know, device that he's using to tell his story in
Right.
each of his
Yeah.
tracks or whatever.
It's not entirely
You know,
dependent on that.
yeah. So I wouldn't. I literally consider that dude one of the best with making chords.
Yeah.
You know, at least like, and how I qualify the best is really, you know, it varies from person to person, right? Because each person has different priorities with what they're doing with their chords, and that's kind of how I look at it.
Right. Yeah.
Like, you know, but regardless of how based around chords your track is, you need to be good at it.
Right. Yeah. I agree. That's especially for the
That
genre.
was
They're
not
so
a
important.
fast answer. That was such
That was
such
not
a
very quick
slow
fire,
answer.
but you know that's
I guess I did say chords right away.
that's true. Yeah. It's
You
and
know,
we expounded.
mixing is important, but if I say that out loud, oh crap, I'm saying it out loud. Oh gosh. Everyone wants me to teach them mixing, and I do not have time or knowledge on how to teach people.
Mixing is hard.
I don't know how to teach people how to do it, man.
It's yeah, especially like when you're self-taught with a lot of this stuff, it's just
Yeah.
we kind of relied on vibe, just kind of
Well, it's
you would
not
mess
like a
around with
lot of
stuff
it's
until
vibe
you figure it
space, and
out.
then just, you know, pushing buttons and seeing what doesn't cause, you know, the computer to explode. You know, there's that, but like, you know, it's crazy because, you know, I can master music too, using knowledge that I've gained that I still cannot figure out how to teach other people. Like,
Right.
I don't know how to teach people how to compress stuff, you
Yeah,
know?
that's true.
Like, I don't know how to tell people, like, hey, your ear is hearing the right thing when you hear this random sound that I can't hear doing
Right.
this thing. Like, it's so genuinely hard to directly teach mixing.
Yeah, that is yeah. It's extreme. A lot of that, the more technical side of things of producing is
But don't let
so
your
much
mixing
trial
fall
and
by the
error.
wayside
No,
just
definitely
because
not.
it's hard, right? Like because every artist is going to reach a point where they are held back by either their sound design or their mixing or both,
Right.
and it's a recurring problem, right? Because you got to you know, get better at mixing every now and then at least, and you at least refine or modernize or change things up with your sound design every now and then.
Yep.
I've
Yeah.
I'm still making like the same, my music still sounds like it's mine, right? But it's definitely got a more refreshing feel these days than it did,
like it still has
years
your
ago.
sound, but that sound has evolved.
Yeah, I've changed how I do my drums without like it sounding totally different, but in a way that, well, often in a way that is totally different. But like the drums, the first thing that I changed was the mixing, right? Like I started learning how to get better at mixing my drums because I just thought they kind of sucked. There's no better way for me to put it. I just didn't like my drums. Other people liked my drums. I didn't.
Right.
So I changed them up and they sound better. They sound snappier and more crisp, more clean, and they let other things through way better.
Right, yeah. One final thing. Do you have anything that you're working on right now that you'd like to shout out or share, or just that you're really looking forward to releasing?
I am working on an album with It's Playa. I'm working on an album by myself, and Talamanca and I cannot stop making collabs.
Which I am thankful for.
So with that last one said, the next, Talamanca and Lauren Schrader collab is out on August 13th.
Nice.
It's called The Reason. It's pretty cool. It's a great track. It's definitely our best collab so far. So.
Oh, wow. That says something, because they've all been good.
They've all been bangers, yeah. But this one is just really good. I think I made the best chords I've ever made.
Wow.
So, yeah, right. I'm very excited for it. I'm listening to the track a lot on my off time right now.
Good. That's like I said before, like we make it for ourselves, we make it because we want to hear it.
Yeah. I guess like to shout things out, like I just always have stuff going on that I'm working on. There's usually something out, and if you're a fan of mine listening to this and you look at my release schedule or my release history and it looks a little empty, then you are allowed to reach out to me as a fan of mine and tell me to finish music.
Like, hey.
Because I have literally finished music because I've been asked to do so before.
Oh, really?
Sometimes I just don't think to, and then I like kind of fall out of touch, and then someone will reach out and be like, "Hey, what are you doing?
Hey, more please."
Yeah, and in the end, I'm never doing nothing. The only thing that changes is if I'm actually releasing stuff. So,
right? Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, so thanks for having me on.
Absolute pleasure.
I will go ahead and shout out the Emergent Music Discord for, anyone interested in this genre that we make. I imagine they're probably already interested if they're watching this, right? But,
right.
I would love to see more of the fans and other artists in the community showing up on the Emergent Discord. That would be super cool.
And there are a lot of incredible artists and people who are already in there and sharing really cool stuff and ideas. And if you're a fan of the genre, kind of getting a peek into that and getting to see that is awesome. So
yeah, we're doing cool stuff over there. We're building something awesome, and we would love you to be part of it. So there's a link on pretty much every Emergent release that's starting this week.
There will be one in the show notes as well of the podcast.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, absolutely.
On this. This is going to be the very first episode, and I'm very excited about the concept of getting to talk to people and kind of explore all the different aspects of it. So, thanks for listening to dotWAVE. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to subscribe and share this with someone you know who'd enjoy it. Most importantly, keep creating. Production, recording, editing, music, and artwork by Souma.